Let's start by exploring what Atomic Habits by James Clear is all about. This book isn't just about habits, it's about the building blocks of change. Tiny, almost invisible improvements that seem insignificant in the moment, but lead to massive transformations over time. James Clear calls them atomic because they're small like atoms, but when combined, they become incredibly powerful. The core message is simple. If you get just 1% better every day, you'll end up with results that are 37 times better by the end of the year. That's the power of compounding in human behavior. Clear opens the book by sharing a story about how a British cycling team revolutionized their performance, not through massive changes, but by improving everything they did by just 1%. They adjusted the ergonomics of the bikes, the fabric of their racing suits, even the pillows they slept on. These minor improvements led to major results, multiple Tour de France victories. And that's what Clear wants us to take away. Success is the result of daily habits, not one-time changes. The problem, according to Clear, is that most people focus too much on goals and not enough on systems. Goals are about the results you want to achieve. Systems are about the processes that lead to those results. You do not rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. That's why habits are so important. They are the invisible architecture of daily life. If you can master the small behaviors, you can master the big outcomes. Identity-based habits. One of the most important concepts Clear introduces early in the book is the idea of identity-based habits. Most people build habits by focusing on what they want to achieve. I want to lose 10 pounds, or I want to write a book. But Clear flips this idea. He says real change comes from focusing on who you want to become. Instead of saying I want to lose weight, say I'm the kind of person who takes care of my body. Instead of I want to write a book, say I'm a writer. This shift from outcomes to identity is powerful because behaviors follow beliefs. When you change your identity, the habits that support that identity become natural. Every action you take is a vote for the type of person you wish to become. The more votes you cast, the more evidence you create. So if you want to become someone who reads, start by reading 1 page. If you want to become a runner, start by putting on your running shoes every morning, even if you don't run at first. These small steps help you reinforce the identity you're trying to build. Clear says there are 3 layers of behavior change. The outer layer is outcomes, what you want. The middle layer is processes, how you do it. And the innermost layer is identity, who you believe you are. Most people work from the outside in, but lasting change works from the inside out. The 4 laws of behavior change Clear then introduces the central framework of the book, the 4 laws of behavior change. These are the principles that make a habit stick, and they follow a simple loop: cue, craving, response, and reward. To build a good habit, make it obvious, make it attractive, make it easy, and make it satisfying. Let's break that down. 1. Make it obvious. The first law is about making the cues of your good habits visible and clear. If your cues are hidden or vague, your habits won't happen consistently. For example, if you want to remember to take a vitamin, put the bottle next to your toothbrush. If you want to read more, place the book on your pillow in the morning. These environmental cues are simple but powerful triggers. James Clear also suggests using a technique called habit stacking. This means attaching a new habit to an existing one. For example, after I make my morning coffee, I will meditate for 1 minute. The key is to anchor the new habit to something that's already stable in your routine. This makes the habit easier to remember and more likely to stick. Another method is creating implementation intentions. This involves stating your plan in a clear and specific way. For example, I will work out at 7 a.m. in my garage. The more specific the plan, the better the chances of follow-through. 2. Make it attractive. The second law is all about motivation. If a habit isn't attractive, you won't feel compelled to do it. That's why Clear talks about temptation bundling, pairing something you want to do with something you need to do. For example, I will only watch Netflix while I'm at the gym. This pairing makes the habit more enjoyable and increases your desire to do it. Clear also explains that humans are social creatures, and we tend to adopt the habits of the people around us. That's why your environment, especially your social environment, is so important. If you want to build a habit, surround yourself with people who already do it. If you hang out with readers, you're more likely to read. If you work out with a friend, you're more likely to show up at the gym. Our brains are wired to imitate the habits of those we admire, respect, or want to belong with. The role of repetition. Another major insight in Atomic Habits is that repetition, not motivation, is the real engine of habit formation. People often say, "I need more motivation," but motivation is unreliable. It comes and goes. The key is consistency. Habits are not formed by reading about them or planning them. They're formed by doing them. The more you do something, the more natural it becomes. That's how the brain rewires itself. With enough repetition, a habit goes from conscious effort to automatic behavior. James Clear says it takes time for a habit to stick, but it doesn't take forever. He debunks the myth of 21 days to build a habit, and instead explains that the time it takes doesn't matter as much as the number of repetitions. The more often you do something, the more likely it is to become part of your identity. He also introduces the idea of the plateau of latent potential. This means that early on, you may not see any results. You're putting in effort, but nothing seems to be changing. That's because change is not linear, it's exponential. You're building a foundation below the surface, and eventually results will explode. But most people give up during the plateau. They don't realize that success was just around the corner. The golden rule: focus on systems, not goals. This part of the book really hammers home the difference between goals and systems. Goals are temporary wins. Systems are the daily routines that create lasting progress. If you focus too much on goals, you might win once and then fall back. If you focus on systems, you create sustainable growth. Clear gives an example from sports. Two teams can have the same goal, to win the championship. But the team with a better system of training, rest, nutrition, and communication will win. The same is true in life. Whether it's writing, fitness, or finances, systems outperform goals every time. He also talks about how goals can create a yo-yo effect. If you set a goal to lose 20 pounds and then stop once you reach it, you'll likely gain the weight back. Why? Because the system didn't change. Your identity didn't change. You saw yourself as someone trying to lose weight, not someone who lives a healthy lifestyle. When you change the system and your identity, you don't just reach your goals, you sustain them. Let's start with the third law. Make it easy. Make it easy. Simplifying the process. The third law, make it easy, is about reducing friction and making habits effortless to start. The biggest barrier to good habits isn't laziness, it's complexity. If a task feels too hard, our brains naturally resist. That's why James Clear encourages us to simplify habits so much that they're almost impossible to say no to. One technique he introduces is called the 2-minute rule. The idea is simple. Any new habit should take less than 2 minutes to do. Want to start reading? Just read 1 page. Want to start meditating? Sit for 2 minutes. Want to run? Just put on your running shoes. These small actions might seem insignificant, but they're not about results. They're about reinforcing your identity. You're not trying to read a whole book or run a marathon on day 1. You're trying to become the kind of person who shows up consistently. Clear also explains that motion doesn't always equal progress. Sometimes we get stuck in motion, researching, planning, preparing, but never take action. We feel like we're making progress, but we're really procrastinating. That's why it's important to start with action, even if it's imperfect. The goal isn't perfection. The goal is to repeat the behavior enough that it becomes automatic. Another way to make habits easier is through environment design. If your environment makes a habit difficult, you'll avoid it. If your environment supports the habit, you'll do it naturally. Want to practice guitar? Leave your guitar in the middle of the room. Want to eat healthier? Keep fruit on the counter and junk food out of the house. Want to watch less TV? Unplug the TV or remove the batteries from the remote. Small changes in your environment can remove the friction and make good habits easier to start. Make IT satisfying, the power of reward. Now let's look at the fourth law, make it satisfying. Habits that feel rewarding are repeated. Habits that feel bad are avoided. It's that simple. But here's the catch. Our brains are wired to value immediate rewards over long-term ones. That's why bad habits are so tempting. They offer instant pleasure. Smoking gives you a buzz right away. Scrolling social media gives you a dopamine hit. But good habits often have delayed rewards. You won't see your abs after one workout. You won't be fluent after one Spanish lesson. So how do we fix that? Clear says the key is to make good habits feel immediately satisfying. One way to do that is through habit tracking. When you track a habit, like putting an X on a calendar, you create a visual cue that shows progress. This taps into our natural desire for completion. The satisfaction of seeing a streak grow can be incredibly motivating. And when you're tempted to skip a day, the thought of breaking the streak can keep you on track. He also introduces the rule, never miss twice. Everyone slips up. That's normal. But missing one day doesn't ruin your progress. It's missing two that creates a new habit in the wrong direction. The secret is to bounce back quickly. If you skip a workout or break your diet, don't beat yourself up. Just show up the next day. Consistency is more important than perfection. You can also use immediate rewards to reinforce behavior. For example, if you're trying to save money, move the amount you saved into a fun fund that you can use for a future treat. Tree on. If you're trying to build a reading habit, enjoy a cup of tea while you read. The point is to link your new habit with something enjoyable to create a positive feedback loop. Inverting the 4 laws, breaking bad habits. So far, we've focused on building good habits. But what about breaking bad ones? Clear gives us a powerful strategy, invert the 4 laws. To break a bad habit, you want to make it invisible, unattractive, difficult, and unsatisfying. Make it invisible. Reduce exposure to the cues that trigger your bad habits. If you want to stop snacking, don't keep snacks in the house. If you want to spend less time on your phone, remove apps from your home screen. Out of sight, out of mind. Make it unattractive. Reframe the habit in your mind. Instead of thinking about the pleasure of smoking, focus on the health risks, the cost, and the loss of energy. Build a new story that makes the habit feel disgusting or weak, not tempting. Make it difficult, add friction. If you want to watch less TV, unplug it after every use. If you want to stop browsing social media, log out of the app or delete it entirely. Use a site blocker or set screen time limits. The harder a habit is to start, the less likely you are to do it. Make it unsatisfying, create consequences for bad habits. Tell a friend your goal and ask them to check in. Use a commitment device, something that locks you into a behavior. For example, you could make a bet. Every time you skip the gym, you donate $5 to a cause you don't support. The fear of embarrassment or loss can be a strong motivator. The role of accountability, James Clear, emphasizes the power of accountability in building and breaking habits. We're social animals. We care what others think. If someone is watching, we're more likely to follow through. That's why accountability partners, public commitments, and support groups are so effective. If you tell a friend you'll run every morning at 7 a.m. and they're waiting outside your door, you'll get up, no matter how tired you are. The fear of disappointing someone else is often stronger than the internal willpower we try to rely on. Advanced strategies, habit shaping, and gateway habits as you become more consistent. Clear encourages you to refine and expand your habits using a process called habit shaping. Start small, really small, then gradually increase the intensity. For example, you might start by doing 1 push-up, then 5, then a full workout. Over time, your habits evolve, but they grow from a foundation of consistency. He also introduces the concept of gateway habits. These are small behaviors that lead you into bigger routines. For instance, putting on workout clothes is a gateway habit to exercising. Opening your journal is a gateway to writing. By mastering the gateway behavior, you reduce the resistance to the full routine. The idea is to scale up only when the small version becomes automatic. You don't need to run a mile on day 1, just focus on showing up. Once showing up becomes second nature, the rest gets easier. The habit loop revisited. By this point in the book, James Clear brings us back to the habit loop, cue, craving, response, reward. This loop is constantly running in the background of our lives. Whether we realize it or not, our brains are always looking for cues, interpreting them, and acting based on past patterns. The more we understand this loop, the more control we have. Habits are the brain's way of conserving energy. Once something becomes automatic, it frees up mental space for other tasks. That's why habits are so powerful, but also why they can be dangerous. Bad habits form just as easily as good ones. Our goal is to become aware of the loops in our lives and take conscious control over them. In the final part, we'll explore how to master habits over the long term, how to maintain momentum, avoid plateauing, and ultimately become the kind of person who can change and grow continuously. We'll also dive into how to stay motivated, how to bounce back from setbacks, and why the secret to greatness lies in consistency, not intensity. The truth about motivation and discipline. One of the biggest myths about habit formation is that it's all about motivation. But motivation is unreliable. It comes and goes. Some days you wake up energized and focused. Other days you feel tired or distracted. James Clear argues that you shouldn't rely on motivation to stick to good habits. Instead, you should design systems that make it easier to act even when motivation is low. This is where discipline and systems come in. Motivation might get you started, but systems keep you going. A system is a repeatable process. If you want to be a writer, your system might be writing one page every morning at 8 a.m. If you want to get fit, your system might be going to the gym every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. When you focus on systems, you don't need to wait until you feel inspired. You just show up and do the work. Clear reminds us that professionals stick to the schedule. Amateurs let life get in the way. This doesn't mean professionals never struggle. They just don't let emotions control their behavior. They have habits that carry them through the hard days. The real difference between success and failure isn't who works the hardest when they're feeling great. It's who can keep going when they're not. The plateau of latent potential. One of the most powerful concepts in Atomic Habits is the idea of the plateau of latent potential. When we build new habits, we often expect quick results. But in reality, progress is often invisible at first. It's like heating an ice cube in a cold room. At first, the temperature rises from 25 to 26 to 27 degrees, but the cube doesn't melt. It's not until you hit 32 degrees that you see the change. That's how habits work. The early efforts often feel wasted, but they're not. They're laying the foundation for a breakthrough. This is where most people give up, during the valley of disappointment. They think their efforts aren't working, so they stop. But the truth is, you're not failing. You're just waiting for the system to catch up. Success is the result of patience, persistence, and sticking with the process long enough to see the compounding results. Identity reinforcement, becoming the type of person throughout the book, Clear emphasizes that the goal is not to achieve results. It's to become the kind of person who lives a certain way. Habits are not just actions, they are votes for the type of identity you want to reinforce. Every time you go for a run, you're casting a vote for becoming a healthy person. Every time you write, you're becoming a writer. Every time you save money, you're reinforcing the identity of someone who is financially responsible. This is why small habits matter so much. They might seem trivial in the moment, but over time they shape who you are. Your identity is not fixed. It's built through your repeated behaviors. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to be consistent. The goal is to shift your beliefs about yourself by proving them through action. The role of repetition and automation. James Clear explains that the key to making habits stick is repetition. It's not about doing something once or twice. It's about doing it so many times that it becomes automatic. This is how habits are encoded into your brain. The more you repeat a behavior, the stronger the neural pathway becomes. Eventually, the behavior becomes effortless. You no longer think about brushing your teeth. You just do it. The same can happen with writing, working out, or meditating. The goal is for the habit to become a natural part of your identity. To support this process, Clear recommends habit tracking and automation. Habit tracking helps you stay aware of your progress and encourages consistency. Automation, such as using reminders, scheduling, or digital tools, can reduce friction and help you build routines without relying on willpower. You want your good habits to be the default option, not the hard one. Reflection and review. To maintain habits over the long term, Clear suggests building in regular moments of reflection and review. Once a week or once a month, take time to evaluate your habits. What's working? What's not? Where are you falling short? Where are you improving? This reflection helps you adjust your systems and stay aligned with your goals. It's also a way to keep your identity in focus. Are you becoming the person you want to be? Reviewing your habits also prevents stagnation. Sometimes, what worked at the beginning stops working later. Your goals evolve, your environment changes, your identity grows. Regular review allows you to adapt your habits so they continue to serve you. When habits become boring, mastering consistency. Clear doesn't sugarcoat the truth. At some point, every habit becomes boring. The novelty wears off. The initial excitement fades. You hit a plateau. This is where most people quit. But the real winners, the people who succeed long term, are the ones who learn to fall in love with the process, not the outcome. They don't rely on feeling motivated every day. They accept that some days will be hard, but they keep showing up. They stick with the schedule. They embrace the boredom, because they understand that mastery isn't about doing amazing things once. It's about doing ordinary things consistently over time. Success is often about who can handle the monotony of routine. It's about showing up, doing the reps, and trusting the process, even when progress is invisible. The role of purpose and meaning to stay committed to your habits, it helps to connect them to a larger purpose. Why do you want to get fit? Why do you want to write a book? Why do you want to be more focused? When your habits are tied to something bigger than yourself, they become more meaningful. You're not just exercising, you're building the strength to play with your kids or live a longer, healthier life. You're not just writing, you're creating something that can inspire others. When you align your habits with your values and long-term vision, you stay motivated even when progress is slow. Purpose gives your actions weight. It turns routines into rituals, competing goals and the danger of success. Ironically, one of the biggest threats to good habits is success. Once we reach a goal, we often stop doing the thing that got us there. We stop tracking our meals, saving money, or practicing our skills. Clear warns against this trap. The solution is to focus on the system, not the goal. Goals are temporary, systems are permanent. The goal is to lose 10 pounds. The system is the way you eat and exercise. Once you hit the goal, the system must stay in place. Otherwise, the results will fade. Success is not a finish line, it's a lifestyle. Clear also explains that when habits become automatic, they can start to limit growth. We stop thinking, we stop improving. That's why he recommends returning to the beginner's mindset. Always ask, how can I improve? How can I refine my process? How can I take this habit to the next level? Conclusion: the true power of Atomic Habits. At its core, Atomic Habits is a book about hope. It shows that no matter where you're starting from, you can change. You don't need to overhaul your life overnight. You just need to make tiny improvements, consistently. 1% better each day adds up. Small choices, made daily, shape who you become. You have the power to design your environment, rewrite your identity, and build systems that support your goals. You can make good habits easier and bad habits harder. You can bounce back from failure. You can handle the boredom of routine. And most importantly, you can become the type of person who doesn't just achieve success, but sustains it. The key isn't magic. It's not luck. It's not even motivation. The key is showing up, doing the work, and trusting that your habits will compound over time. That's the true power of Atomic Habits.